Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Christopher Plant. I represent the National Organization for Marriage. I will be brief and yield my time to my contemporaries up here, but I do want to say that the National Organization for Marriage backs what you heard from Joseph Backholm, that this is a decision that should be left to the people. The National Organization is committed to making sure that if the committee and legislature redefines marriage, that is what the question is, what is marriage? If they do that, the people of Washington will have the say that they deserve, that basic right to vote on marriage and the definition of it. Thank you.
Sure. Ma'am.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Dr. Jennifer Roback Morse. I'm the founder and president of the Ruth Institute, which is a 501c3 organization based in San Diego, California. I've written 2 books on the subject of marriage, and I'm here today to speak about this bill. I'm here today to address those of you who've already made up your minds to redefine marriage. History will not be kind to you. Previous generations of social experimenters have caused unimaginable misery for millions of people. Particular people advocated the policies that led to today's 50% divorce rate and 40% out-of-wedlock childbearing rate, and none of these people has ever been held accountable. But I'm here today to hold you to account for the predictable harms that you've already caused and will continue to cause in your efforts to redefine marriage. Let me remind you of the essential public purpose of marriage. Marriage attaches mothers and fathers to their children and to one another. Once you replace that essential public purpose with inessential private purposes, marriage will not be able to do its job, but children will still need secure attachments to their mothers and fathers, a need which will go unfulfilled. You're redefining parenthood as a side effect of redefining marriage without even considering what you're about to do. Up until now, marriage makes legal parenthood track biological parenthood. The legal presumption of paternity means that children born to a married woman are presumed to be the children of her husband. With this legal rule and the social practice of sexual exclusivity, marriage attaches children to their biological parents. Same-sex couples, of course, do not procreate together. Marriage equality requires a slippery move from the presumption of paternity to the gender-neutral presumption of parentage. This sleight of hand transforms parenthood. The same-sex partner of a biological parent is never the other biological parent. Rather than attaching children to their biological parent, same-sex marriage becomes the vehicle that separates children from the parent. No longer will the law hold that children need a mother and a father. In other states, courts are saying silly things like, quote, the traditional notion that children need a mother and a father to be raised into healthy, well-adjusted adults is based more on stereotype than anything else, close quote. This statement made by the Iowa Supreme Court in Varnum v. Bryan is simply false as a general statement. Mountains of data show that children do need their mothers and fathers, and that children care deeply about their biological connections. The gay community is not responsible for today's generation of fatherless children, but they will be responsible for the next such generation. And don't tell me that we already have lots of children unattached to their parents. We should be taking steps to place responsible limits on things like divorce, rather than careening headlong into further and more institutionalized injustices to children. Are you really prepared to take responsibility for the consequences of detaching legal parenthood from the natural moorings of biology? Do you really want a world in which children may have 3 or 4 legal parents? Are you ready for contract parenting, in which adults parcel out parental responsibilities amongst themselves? Should the state insist that children never care about their biological origins? These are the consequences of redefining marriage and parenthood as genderless institutions. The next generation of children of divorce may be shuttling between 3 or 4 households with their backpacks and their sleeping bags. Whether you're ready or not, I hold you accountable. And don't try to tell me that nothing so terrible has happened in Massachusetts. Look, redefining marriage redefines the way generations relate to one another. It is foolish to believe that we would feel the full impact of such a change in only a few years. It will take at least a generation, a full 30 years or more, before the full effects of redefining marriage work themselves out through the social system. The only argument that you're working with here that we've heard today is so-called equality. You are taking a venerable American concept and twisting it out of recognition. Equality used to mean limiting the power of the state to make irrelevant distinctions among citizens. In your hands, equality is becoming a battering ram for smashing every aspect of social life that has any hint of sexual differentiation. No more mothers and fathers, only parent one and parent two. No more husbands and wives, only spouses. And what about those people who decline to participate in your war against nature? What is in store for them? Far from limiting the power of the state, your version of equality has become a tool for the hostile takeover of civil society by the state. Churches are already under attack from daring to dissent from the new state-imposed orthodoxy that marriage is whatever the state says it is. Faith-based groups are facing legal liabilities in every area where they interact with the public. There is more at stake here than whether you solemnize a marriage or not. Parents are losing the right to direct the education of their own children. Foster parents in the UK must submit to the state's views about marriage. Reputable adoption agencies have been put out of business. And the pettiness of some of the complaints brought by same-sex couples is simply staggering. Christian bed and breakfast owners have been sued for not allowing unmarried couples to stay in double rooms. They would have gladly rented them separate rooms, but that was not good enough. Same-sex couples have brought legal complaints against wedding photographers, as if there were a constitutional right to have your picture taken by the person of your choice, all in the name of civil rights. Let me remind you that a vast majority of African Americans completely reject same-sex marriage. They are deeply offended by the hijacking of the moral authority of their civil rights movement. When slavery was abolished, all slaves became free men and women. When women obtained the right to vote, the discrimination ended with the very next election. But for the children of same-sex marriage, the situation will be different. When we come to our senses 30 years from now and realize that we have perpetrated a grotesque injustice, not a single child born motherless or fatherless within a same-sex marriage will get his missing parent back. Only prevention will protect children's rights. The thin disguise of marriage equality will not mislead anyone, nor will it atone for the wrong this day done. And to those of you who plan to vote for man-woman marriage, I say, stay strong. History is on your side.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Swecker, members of the committee. My name is Austin Nimitz. I'm an attorney with the Alliance Defense Fund. We litigate cases across the country involving religious freedom, marriage in the family, and the sanctity of human life. Mr. Chairman, in a time of public emphasis on jobs, it is disappointing that this body is considering legislation to make meaningless the jobs of mother and father. In considering this bill, this legislature is turning a blind eye to why government is in the marriage business. Marriage has universally crossed all lines, sociological, geographical, political, religious, and historical. As stated by the famous philosopher Bertrand Russell, a self-described atheist, quote, "But for children, there would be no need of any institution concerned with sex. It is through children alone that sexual relations become of importance to society and worthy to be taken cognizance of by a legal institution. This is why government is in the marriage business." Mr. Chairman, marriage doesn't prevent individuals from living how they want to live or curtail anybody's constitutional rights. And individuals marry as they always have for a wide variety of personal reasons. But the private reasons why individuals marry are irrelevant to today's discussion. This is about the social policy of Washington as applied to all of its citizens. The government's interest in marriage is narrow and unique. This is why marriage is always about opposite sexes. It's never been conditioned upon a couple's ability and desire to find happiness together, their level of financial entanglement, or their actual personal dedication to each other. Marriage laws exist because children are the product of sexual relationships between men and women, and that fathers and mothers are both equally necessary for children. This is why government is in the marriage business. In 1967, the Supreme Court of the United States decided the case of Loving against Virginia, striking down a race-based marriage law. In so doing, it said that marriage is, quote, "fundamental to our very existence and survival," unquote, discussing its procreative nature. 5 years later, the Supreme Court of the United States dismissed an appeal claiming that same-sex marriage was a fundamental right. Mr. Chairman, not one single justice of the U.S. Supreme Court found the claims for same-sex marriage substantial enough to even warrant the court's time. That same rationale was later upheld by the Washington Supreme Court 6 short years ago in 2006. Mr. Chairman, some may argue that times have changed, but nobody can credibly argue that humanity as a gendered species has changed. Men and women still compose the two great halves of humanity. Men and women are still wonderfully and uniquely different, and men and women still play important roles in the family. And in the few seconds I have left, I'd like to address, Mr. Chairman, a question raised by Senator Roach on religious liberty. The statement by the governor's representative here was that she supports the bill as advanced, which is not the bill before this committee. She does not support immunity for those who solemnize marriages, immunity for religious organizations, defining a religious organization, protecting individuals and businesses, and does not truly believe in pluralism and supporting all Washingtonians to their
Thank you, sir.
individual beliefs. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you for coming in today.